Hey friends, thanks for checking in on Pioneer Movements. I am just showing up to give you an announcement and let you know what I'm thinking about. So right now I am in the car and Sarah Joy and Darby are at a newborn appointment, and just really grateful for healthy newborn, and we have a lot to be thankful for. So like I said, launching out, branching out with this whole new brand, whole new conversation, helping church leaders prepare for the future of church in their context. And in some ways it feels drastic, but in other ways it's just New Testament life. We're always meant to follow Jesus. And if we are willing to follow Jesus in a way that pioneers movements, we can actually inspire the next generation to love and follow Jesus too. But if we basically follow Jesus in a way that is comfortable, this is awesome. I don't know if you can see, there's gonna be a big truck. Oh yeah, look at that. That's Texas right there, y'all. Texas. But that made my day. If we follow Jesus in a way that is comfortable only, where the opportunity cost is going to be more than we could imagine. And I've talked about this in other conversations, but there was a really good leader named Hezekiah, and man, he did some good stuff, but he didn't finish well because he was told, he got sick and then God healed him, and then a group from Babylon came. They were kind of spying him out in the pretense of sympathy and support, and he just couldn't see it. It was a good leader who had a good heart that didn't have discernment, because he's like, well, they're not my enemy. They're not antagonistic to me. They're not hostile to me. They're actually helpful to me, and they're nice towards me. But he didn't realize that the motive was going to be magnified into hostility towards the next generation under his charge. And so he had some short-sightedness, and he let them come and see everything that God had done. He let them see everything that God had given them and done for them. And I'm sincere when I say this. We've got a lot of church communities that have been, insecure to the point that they want to show off everything that God is doing in their communities, and they live stream everything. They think online church is the same as church. And absolutely, there's a place for online ministry. There's real ministry, real church stuff that's going on. I'm not discounting that. But what I'm saying is the motive has to matter, and a lot of people have not been entering into these opportunities with discernment. And I'm not at all implying that I've got it figured out. I'm lamenting something that church leaders are painfully aware of, so that we together can seek the Lord and let him comfort us and counsel us. And I'm just trying to, draw some points out of this story that I feel like the Lord is highlighting right now. So basically, the group from Babylon comes and they get to see everything, and the prophet comes to say, how much did you show? And he said, well, I showed him everything. And I think I'm going to get into some of this a little bit later, but there's really a shift that's happening. I don't think church leaders know this because they've just been doing it so long, or so long, that they don't realize church as they knew it is ended. Church as they need it is the priority. is the focus. Church as they need it. We need to be thinking, what kind of church culture will the next generation need? To love Jesus, honor Jesus, obey Jesus, run with Jesus, do the greater works that Jesus promised. What is the culture of church in the future need to look like for their sake? Not something that we have grown familiar to. And thankfully, we are really from the future as the people of God already. So it shouldn't be hard for us to identify with the future of church. It should be what I call the commissioning moment. It should be like the original reality that we're just living out more and more. It's like if we had conversations with the heroes of faith and, the Hall of Faith, Hebrews 11 kind of group, and we ask them, man, what was it like to live in that generation? What was it like to see the exploits of God? What was it like to see the miracle power of God? They're going to say, well, yeah, it was like this and that and this and that. But what was it like living in your generation? They're going to look back at this generation from eternity and in the kingdom of heaven, and they're going to be like, you have no idea what was going on in your generation. We're admiring the grace of God being poured out in your generation. And I don't think we see the opportunity of what's happening. And so because of that, we're a little too familiar with it. And there's a lack of urgency. And you can have urgency motivated by scarcity, or you can have urgency motivated by opportunity. And Jesus told us in Luke 10:2, lift up your eyes, see the harvest. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray to the Lord of the harvest that he would, ekbalo, launch out laborers into these new fields. So the point is that it is urgency, but it's urgency motivated by opportunity. And the great challenge for church leaders going into the next phase is not going to be scarcity. It's going to be too much opportunity. It's going to overwhelm them. You're going to get overwhelmed by so much opportunity. You're going to get overwhelmed by so many people that need help and hope. You're going to get overwhelmed by so many fields opening up to you. Literally, as things get darker, the light's going to shine brighter, and people are going to come to the of the Lord, and like, you're gonna have to be ready for that. So I think of guys like George Mueller, who's an amazing just man of faith, and you think about his constant dependence on God to take care of kids, and that's a huge theme, that we can unpack later. But man, just talking about opportunities. There's opportunities for ministry, and more than that, opportunities, to mature in Christ in the context of community. I think that's something that needs to be talked about as well. So anyways, I'm just kind of dropping thoughts while I am being relationally present for my wife and daughter, and it's just a joy. I love doing it. It's the season we're in, and I only get this season once, and so I want to be, present with it. And I've actually grown so much closer to the Lord. I got to watch like an old master class from Reinhard Bonnke, and he was talking about prayer, and it's like 2 or 3 hours long. You can find it on YouTube, and I think I was like an hour and a half into it, and it was good. It was powerful, and his accent is so cool. Obviously, he was a man of faith, and I actually had the real honor of meeting him in person and spending a little time with him. And man, I just think about just the wisdom of God to overlap generations like that. Just like we may only get a few minutes with, older generations, but we've got to have the baton handoff in some sense. And if there's just anything we can catch, if there's anything we can like learn or just grab onto and say like we're gonna run with that value, we're gonna run with that impartation. Just something that, I'm not saying that we copy those people by any means. I'm just saying that they have a life in God that needs to be appreciated. And we look through the humanity and we see the Lord's grace at work in their life, and that brings a testimony of where we need to go. So let me try to round this all off. Hezekiah he was a little short-sighted, and his issue was that he didn't have the discernment to create some healthy boundaries. And so unfortunately he showed too much. So I think in this opportunity time where so much can be online and so much can be monetized, that's the promise everybody's getting. I feel like there is a real separation coming into the church where the Lord is asking us, are you willing to separate what I desire to do in hidden and in the underground, in the grassroots, in the homes, in the families? Are you willing to really guard that and grow in that and not feel pressured or insecure to the point where you feel this kind of unnecessary itch to just share it all, show it all, let everybody see it all? Like, God does amazing things without people's attention. I mean, literally, he moves in the harvest. He moves in the hidden, overlooked things in our life. So I think there's like just an insecurity in a lot of church leaders and church communities that they feel like the only way things are going to go up in the right as they see it is by showing it all, sharing it all, trying to grab it all. And I personally believe this is just like a little helpful tagline, I guess, that's kind of helped me see this shift. The future of church is growing as people are ministering to the Lord, not as we see people marketing to other people. And churches, they've just kind of put an overemphasis on marketing to people instead of just the value of ministering to the Lord. And so, because of it, the prophet said to the king, hey, because you did that, it's kind of it's going to run its course, and the next generation is going to suffer because of it. They're going to go into captivity. And he said, oh, that's a good word for me. It's not going to happen in my generation. It's not going to happen in my time. And we've had so much already happening. I don't know why we can't see this. It's really important that we need to prepare. We need to prepare our hearts for the Lord, and we need to prepare our homes for the move of God. And there's no fear in it. I'm not saying that to be like, oh, watch out, they're going to shut us out. They're going to crack down, although that is absolutely the experience of so many of our brothers and sisters around the world. And if we think that we're immune to the experiences of others, that we're going to need their testimonies a lot. But it's not without hope. It's not without courage. It's not without the miraculous intervention of God. It's going to be literally the amazing perpetual harvest of nations and generations. Literally just where the plowman overtakes the reaper overtakes the plowman. Um, so that means literally like just this non-stop harvest season. And how do you do that? How do you handle that? How do you even prepare your heart for that, your team for that, your logistics for that? You do these deep dives into these revivals, and they literally ruin ministries because the ministries can't handle them. You know, they can't keep up with the demand. They can't keep up with the scale, the intensity, the velocity of it. And so the Lord's building a house that he can dwell in, that he can inhabit, you know. So a lot of, unfortunately, you're going to get a lot of thoughts that just kind of indicate, hey, maybe you can check it out later. You know, we're just kind of going on a hike. We're kind of looking around at the landscape and saying, oh, that might be cool. Let's explore that. Let's explore that. Let's get to that later. But hopefully you're, you know, just thinking about things with the Lord and letting the Lord just encourage you and instruct you as you go. So my hope and prayer for this is to just document a conversation that I'd love to have with church leaders. And I'm excited about this brand. I'm working a lot on it. I've been working on it over intentionally, like this name and this direction and this heart, at least 5 or 6 years, just personally and underground with friends and pastors in my kind of relational network. But I felt like the Lord say, man, you need to branch out with this. It's a go for it moment, particularly because of our daughter, Darby. She's amazing. And man, just such a joy. Nothing but joy, honestly. Peace and joy has just been our whole experience. The Lord's been really kind to us through her, but I pray that the Lord's really gracious to her all her life as well. And yeah, I'm thinking about the future of church. I'm thinking about the kind of church culture that they're going to grow up in. And I'm really grateful, you know, that somebody sacrificed and somebody labored for me and my, you know, growing up with the Lord. But we're always inheriting something, and we're always contending for something. And I think that's a part of the kingdom culture, is it's by grace through faith. So the things we're walking in a large way, I mean, we're inheriting things that other people have labored for. And then in the same regard, we've got to be willing to commit to contend for things so that the next generation has an inheritance waiting on them as well. And yeah, I'm really thankful, really encouraged. The Lord's doing awesome things. But let me try to give a few calls to action. Number one, subscribe to this conversation. It's just getting started. I launched out right when our daughter arrived, and just having a blast, just going slow and enjoying this newborn season with her and my wife. So I you know, I've just kind of been doing that daily domestic thing. I didn't actually mention the part about Reinhard Bonnke, but basically about an hour and a half into Reinhard Bonnke's masterclass on prayer, he actually says that your prayer life will grow when you embrace the domestic responsibilities of family. I was like, let's go. So I've experienced it. I've honestly experienced that. I don't know, you just relate to God a little differently when you see a kid, you know, and you feel the responsibility factor, but you also feel the love factor. And yeah, it's just a great experience. So I've been praying and processing a lot since before and since. And I encourage you, like, just enjoy the season that God's brought you through. and use it as an opportunity to prepare your heart, prepare your home, and ultimately, maybe, or eventually, I should say, eventually, I hope church leaders prepare their hubs, and we can get into that later. But yeah, the Lord's led me to branch out, and I want to be accessible to multiple fields. I want to serve in multiple fields. It's not because I'm restless. It's because I really believe that this is the hour to work while we can and do as much as we can while we can. And so, yeah, I just want to encourage leaders. I want to prepare leaders for new fields. I want to find the pioneering, thinking leaders and encourage them. They're church leaders that are, kingdom seeking, and they really believe this is their expansion era. And so in the grace of God, they're going for it. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're a leader in business and you really want to learn kingdom culture, kingdom principles, so that way you can be a founder or an entrepreneur for a kingdom enterprise. That just means that you're dedicating your work, your business, to partner with the Lord and His purposes. And then maybe you're just a church leader and you're doing full-time vocational ministry, and that's amazing too. And I celebrate you, whether you're in local church context or some sort of missional context. The Lord's doing amazing things in all different places, and we just want to bless what the Lord is building. And I'm telling you, He's not building buildings, although they can be repurposed for that, but ultimately He's building people. He's building His church up to be bold and be the ecclesia in their respective regions. So for this project specifically, the podcast is called Pioneer Movements, and I just want to start sharing conversations and see who resonates with it, and see if people are out there that are catching what I'm just carrying and throwing out there. And it's not meant to be like a really developed presentation yet. It's more of just sharing the journey and seeing who's already on that journey as well. And then we can start kind of coming closer and closer together in terms of community and collaboration. I'm going to be launching a course at some point, hopefully sooner than later. But it's called Pioneer Movements, Finding and Funding the Future of Church. And it's, again, been a long time coming, and it's just been wonderful. And I've just been learning a lot and really getting the experience of it. And then I want to compile it in a way that is helpful and transferable to other fields, other contexts. So basically what I did with that is there's seven steps or 7 categories to kind of wrap your heart and your head around what does it look like to pioneer movements. And so I'm going to be going a little bit more intentionally or methodically through those 7 categories, creating content around that, and then shape that up into a course that people can access. And then eventually I'd love to do some group coaching with a group of church leaders that I call pioneer pastors, and I'll explain more about that later. In prayer, the Lord put an encouragement on my heart, and He said basically there was a new iteration or a new generation of church leadership that was coming, and that they were going to help the church navigate the unfamiliar territory. And then He gave me some attributes and some examples, both in scripture as well as in church history, about just how He's always, provided humble leadership that is moving in faith. And one of the unique attributes of pioneering leaders for the church, and I say that a little bit loosely because I think we still have this paradigm of what church has to look like. But anyways, pioneering leaders are going to, he said they're pioneer pastors, And one of the unique attributes is that they're actually teams of elders. They're elder teams. They're not individuals. It's not lone leadership model. It's actually collaboration of teams of leaders. And obviously that's not new. We need that. I mean, that's like church history and just good doctrine. But having said that, we need teams on all levels, right? So we need, maybe you're a part of a network, it's going to take a team to steward that well. It's God's wisdom to strengthen one another. And then there's safety in a multitude of counsel. And yeah, it's just functionally, it makes more sense to me. Like I've grown up as a second generation pastor. My family has done ministry my entire life. My parents have done ministry the majority of their adult lives. We've been able to interact with literally, conservatively hundreds, but honestly it's more like thousands of church groups over like a 35 year run. And it's been awkward to admit things are different, but it's been so important to see it and to see what the Lord's doing and to lean into that and know that you're a part of a beautiful story and a restoration story, and that people need to keep trusting the Lord, keep following him at a pace that ministers grace. And yeah, so I think a lot of the best work that's been going on has been underground, like just stuff you really can't talk about, stuff you really can't broadcast, stuff you can't use for some sort of marketing. And I think that that's really special. So let me stop it. I'm at 27 minutes. Podcast, course, some sort of group coaching / community. Please be a part of this. Please subscribe, share this with other church leaders. Maybe they're in business, maybe they're in ministry, maybe they're in both, and they're really leaning into that king and priest thing. But whatever it is, just know the Lord is with us. And that's not to say that he's on our side. I'm saying that to say that the Lord is on the move, and he will have volunteers that join him in the day of his power. So let's be those with voluntary love. Let's be those with, love-based obedience. And let's enjoy the days we get. Let's enjoy the people that are in our fields. And let's watch God do amazing things. Love y'all. Stay encouraged, stay engaged, and I'll check in again later.